everyone. Let me bump this up a little bit. Hello everyone, this is creepingnet with a new computer video for the first time in ages. Been kind of up to some retro stuff and we're getting towards the end of it. So anyway, we're gonna talk about my 486 computer a little bit in a subject of the Vogons forums, which was basically we had a thread recently about emulation, particularly emulation on old PCs, such as my custom-built, homemade 486, like right over here. Just took the best of all the machines I've ever built and basically consolidated them into one really killer retro DOS gaming rig, or Windows 995 gaming rig, because the Mobile Bay has another 20 gig drive over there with 95 on it. I decided to start out though because everybody who I've well, not everybody, but a lot of people who have stopped by my channel have, commented on my computer videos previously. Said, "Oh, you're using a virtual machine, you're using whatever." I decided to go ahead and provide you a little bit of, as good a visual proof as I can without me having to open up the case and drive people around me nuts with tools and crap. So, let's go up here. We're running a AMD 486. It's an enhanced one with WriteBack cache at 100 megahertz. With a BIOS date of October 17th, 1995. We're running MS-DOS 622 Revision A with a total of 64 megabytes of memory. I actually have 128 megabytes with Parity right here. This is the other two SIMs. I took them out because they were making it a little unstable and a little slow. Got serial. I took some of the ports out to save resources. Hard disk 1 counts as an 8 gig, but it's actually a 15 gig with a dynamic drive overlay on it. And the video card is an S3 805 SVGA VLB local bus card with 2 megabytes of VRAM. Overall, this is a pretty beefy system and not very representative of what a 486 was in the original era. You'd be looking at a 128 megabyte hard drive, and like 4 megabytes of RAM. I'm running this thing with obnoxious levels of stuff. Actually, the stuff I wished it had in 2001 when I started this madness. Let's type that in. I'm trying to type around my camera. So I'm going to show you what some of the emulators I use have been and what their performance characteristics are like. And I'm using my old potato camera for this, so please, sorry, but this is just the easiest way to do this because it kills my phone to put this much video on there at HD quality. At least the phone I have currently, which is kind of a piece of crap, in my opinion. Let's look around. Alright, so mainly I'm going to try and show you these emulators with the games that never worked on them so great. Let's start with Pitfall 2, The Lost Caverns. On a 486... Ooh, that's loud. As we can see, it's pretty slow. Not particularly the best performance in the world, but it's a lot more harsh than some of the other games. But that's because it's having to emulate that specialized sound chip that was created by David Crane, who was a chip designer before he worked for Activision. That's what's causing the slowdown. Now let's go back to one of my other favorite games, Adventure. This is an early game from 1978, created by Warren Robinett. And as you can see, it runs at full speed, because this is a older 1970s era game, although my joystick controller ports are not working correctly. Or the keyboard controls are not working correctly. You see a little slowdown there. Stab the dragon, stab the dragon. There you go. There's one other dragon over here. So as you can see, it slows down a little bit in some spots. The 2600 is a very hard system to emulate because it's about as rudimentary as it comes, and so it's very abstract compared to, say, an x86 DOS-based PC. Typically, these things hit full speed on early Pentium, but it is playable, and I do still find some fun and enjoyment in it. Now we're going to go back to another emulator. Go to C/em. It's so hard to type. It's very hard to type around this thing I have the camera on. There we go. So, now we're going to talk about probably the best known emulator of that era, NESticle. Settings, input, sound. I don't think there's a volume control, so I might have to turn this down and bring the mic closer when I start playing. So let's start with another one of the games that didn't run exactly right at that time. Let's talk about Dragon Warrior 4. Now, we're going to talk about Dragon Warrior 4 a little bit. Dragon Warrior 4, when it was originally dumped, was a bad ROM dump of 1 megabyte, and it worked with NESticle, but it doesn't work with any other emulator. So if you're going to use NESticle and you want to play Dragon Warrior 4, you need that 1 megabyte dump. There's only like one website I was able to find these days that actually has that, just so you know. The typical download that you usually get for Dragon Warrior 4 is around 512 kilobytes. So, yeah. As we can see, emulation is pretty darn accurate, pretty good. There's no scan lines, there's no extra enhancements, but back in the days when this was out, you had a CRT monitor, it looked a lot more accurate. It's because it's on an LCD that makes it look a little blocky. And as you can see, there's a little bit of frame skip weirdness there. Not too terribly much, but some. Let me reposition my mic a little. Really need a mic stand. Alright. Whoa. Let me think of... here we go. Coffee cup time. There we go. So, Dragon Warrior 4, it doesn't do too bad. It's actually very good, smooth scrolling, plays pretty well. This is my favorite game, actually, for the NES. My favorite RPG, at least. I also really like the Mario games everybody else does. But yeah, this one runs fine, so that's why I would say NESticle X.XX, the last version, would be the best version to use for emulation on a DOS-based PC. Bammo. I'm really good at this one. I beat this game like 3 times. Alright, but we're gonna... going to talk about another one that didn't emulate right. This is the one that you probably, if you want to play Castlevania III, you probably don't want to play it on a 486 running DOS. It just does not run correctly, ever. Or maybe it does. Well, I think the feature that makes it work, and I'll show you in a minute. No. Nah, it doesn't work. Yeah, you see, it does some kind of rescan thing right here where it's pulling off the side of the screen right over there. It's messing it up. So, yeah. Funny enough, I'm one of the lucky few to actually have a real actual copy of this game on a cartridge. And you know full and darn well I would never post to YouTube something like this unless I'm demonstrating the limitations like I am right here. And now we are back, and we are recording ZSNES, which actually does run, and it's actually not too bad on here. You do have to change some of the configuration parameters on it, though, to make it work properly. Sorry about that. Again, we're working on SNES. Video, you probably want to go to the lowest video mode possible. And the reason being is that will probably put the least load on the system. You want to turn all filters off. Then you want to go down here, sound, sampling rate, volume level. I probably want that around 49. This is kind of a nice feature. Interpolation, you want to turn that off. Sampling rate, 40. I want it 8,000. Enable stereo. Force 8-bit output. I'm just going to do that to cut down on the amount of memory being used, because this is a 16-bit emulator, and this is a lot of stuff that has to be done. Auto frame rate, toggled, fast forward, slow down. We'll just go ahead and deal with all that in a minute. There we go. Now let's load a game. Let's see what stuff might work on here. Like, we'll start with Super Mario RPG. Let's see if this starts. Well, crazy. I've never gotten this to work on a 486 before. Oh god, it's trying to squeeze all that through that little dinky DX4-100. But it's actually doing it, which is kind of surprising. Let's load like an early one, like SimCity. Let's see how that does. I don't have Super Mario World on here, which is kind of a sin, but not too bad. Oh yeah, I have my old save game from my Wii copy of it. It's actually not too bad. I've dealt with worse. But still, if you want to play SimCity on a 486, you're probably better off running it on the one of the DOS or lovely Windows versions that are a lot better and have a much better interface. Let's see if we can make the frame rate smoother so I can show you what the gamepad is. Okay, so now, and I'll leave you at it.